a couple of things, right? So I suppose I should start by saying welcome and thanks for being here. Hopefully the material we go through today will be of some advantage to you, that you latch on to something and take it with you, not only into your game, but into your schoolwork, maybe your career ambition. Some of you are all kind of at the stage now where you're transitioning from young man into adult, and this stuff is important and it matters not only for the sport that you're playing, but for your life beyond the sport. And that's the key thing to remember here, right? I was searching the internet for a good, an apt photograph for today's session, and you know the two lads there well. I think one or two of the Brogans was inside there for the breakfast morning. So we're looking at the title of the session here is Developing the Psychological Skills for Success in Sport. And you should keep in mind that success is how you define it. It's not objective. Nobody gets to say what success is for you. You decide. That's one of the key messages that I hope to get across today. Okay, a little bit about me, just for those who are unfamiliar or whatever. I'm Keane's dad. I've been around the kind of 2007 lads for a long time, watching from the sidelines, admiring how you guys got on and the success you've had both in school together and here in the club. And it's a pleasure to watch you. Now you're joined by the 2008 lads, and hopefully you can integrate and build a couple of good teams and find some success, however you define that, in the game. I'm an organization psychologist. I'm concerned with the behaviour and performance of people when they come together in teams and groups, whether that's in work, whether it's in sport, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in education, it doesn't matter. Performance. The psychology of performance is something that I like to focus on. Do you want to go over there so you can see the screen then? I'm a lecturer in psychology, and I deliver these workshops and talks on various subjects, well-being, leadership, all that kind of stuff, okay? So that's me. You'll have access to these slides later. I'll show you where to get them and other material that we'll have for you too, okay? On your phone, go to slido.com. Do that now for me.
As the Wi-Fi code here is Plunkett bar and lounge. Capital A, BCD, 1, 2, 3, 4. Only capital A and everything BCD 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hopefully this tech will work, right? It usually works. This is the Slido room 1593595. You can scan this QR code with your phone if you want, or you go to slido.com, room number 1593595. That's where you're going to provide some input to some of the questions we have for you today. And this is going to be an interactive thing, okay? We're going to do this together. This isn't just me standing up here banging off various kind of obscure topics. I want your input because that's where the learning occurs, all right? This is about you guys. It's about the coaches, about you guys and how you integrate and come together, okay? So hopefully you've all managed to get on that Slido room. We'll come back to it shortly. Here also you'll have access to and you can again scan this QR code, open a new tab on your phone. You can also go to this link. Again, you don't necessarily have to worry about this now. You'll have access to this later on. All the files and stuff that I'm speaking about will be available here, okay? In a public folder. A couple of books recommended. Books at the start here: Pure Sport, John Kremer and Aidan Moran. John Kremer is a professor of performance psychology at Queen's University in Belfast. Dr. Aidan Moran passed away in 2020. A significant figure in psychology in UCD and also a leading figure on the application of these principles to sport, all right, and performance. Performance psychology, this one here, can't see that book. Stuart Cotterill, that's what it looks like. So if you're interested in these topics after we're finished, pick up one of those books. Be a valuable companion as you go through your work and what have you, or your play. That's a shorter version of the same book. So if you can get your hands on them, great. Good for coaches as well, to bring ourselves up to speed on some of these ideas and help us do our job a little bit better. Okay, so today's agenda. We'll go through some important points. We'll discuss some key concepts, not only today, but over the course of the next year. I'm with you for a year, by the way. and we'll redo some of this stuff over the next couple of months. The topics we'll cover, and topic 1, which is later this afternoon, values and goals, what they mean, and how to set them, and so forth. Pros and cons of goal setting. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So some important points to consider first. This is the foundation of our conversation. These are merely ideas for you to consider, all right? It's not my opinion. I do have opinions on some of this stuff, but I want you to understand that what we're talking about here is the result of, I don't know, 130, 40, 50 years of research and practice into the performance of human beings, how to get the best from ourselves, all right? And the conditions that need to be available to us to get the best from ourselves. So these are ideas. I'm not selling you on anything. I just want you to consider them, have an open mind about these things, and try them for yourself. They're fundamental. They're applicable, as I mentioned, to education, to work, career, sport, you name it. They are those things that are common to everyone who succeeds in their work and career and sport and so on, okay? This is important. You're not an object. You're not a noun. You're a verb. You're a process. And everything we talk about is about process. It's about finding a process that works. Now, you might say, well, I have a goal. I want to win the league. I want to win the championship, whatever. Brilliant. But you set that goal and then you put it aside and you focus, put your blinkers on and you focus on the work. That's what I mean by process. And in that process, there is fluctuation. So it's not set in stone. Just like I said, that success is not objective. Nobody gets to say what success is for you. You get to decide. And over the course of doing what we do, there's bound to be variation. So for example, hopefully you can see the board here. So for example, come around here. Let's say in performance. So P for performance and let's say M for the measure, whatever. So in performance, so this is low and this is high. So wouldn't you say, let's say this is effort actually. So any one player puts in a minimal amount of effort. How do you think his performance will be, generally speaking? Anyone? Pardon? Not very high. Whereabouts on the performance line would you say it is likely to be? Down here somewhere? So here he is. So he puts in a low degree of effort. He shows up occasionally to training. He shows up, he messes about. He's maybe not interested in it. He just wants to be there for another reason. So when he's measured on his performance on any given day, it might not be great. So for this individual here who puts in a lot of effort, puts the time in, the work in, to the skills and so forth, even when he's not training, where do you think his performance is likely to be? Anyone else? Where? Up the top? Somewhere around here? So he's likely to be out here. Okay, so you look at a group of players, 40, 60 players, you're going to see this kind of setup here, right? So what can you tell about that pattern? What can you say? Come on, be brave, speak up. What can you tell about that pattern of information? Yeah, and there seems to be a relationship, doesn't there, between the amount of effort you put in and the performance you produce, right? So it's like this, there's a relationship. Seems to be this kind of linear relationship between effort and performance. Now, it's not so set in stone. That's what I'm trying to say when I say that you're not an object. It's not a case of do this and you get this out of it. There's some variation. So in other words, one fella can put in this amount of effort, another fella a similar amount, and they get different results. So in other words, it depends. But we know from looking at the data that there is a relationship. And generally speaking, the message is here, the more effort that you put in, the more likely it is you're to produce a high performance, okay? But there's some variation in that. So you're not made of stone, you're not a block. is what I'm trying to say here. So you got to allow for some variation. And if this doesn't make sense now, it might later on when we talk about goals, okay? So test these things out that we'll go through. Test them and try them for yourself. You're the ultimate authority in your own performance, okay? So you test it, see what works for you. Some key concepts that we'll get into. Processes. Blinkers on, get the work done, rather than outcomes. Everybody wants to win a game. But we got to find out what it was about the game that can help us improve. So it's not necessarily about the winning and the losing of the game, but what we learn in the process, okay? We'll talk about growth-oriented mindset. In other words, I mightn't have the skill to kick a 40-meter shot over the bar at the moment, but I know that with time and effort, I can develop that skill. Okay, you're not born with a set of skills and that's it. They can be developed and grown. So growth-oriented mindset is something we'll talk about. That's a key factor in your own achievement, okay? In school or otherwise, or in sport. We'll talk about the 2 trains of thought. That's another one. Another important thing to consider. The thoughts that we think in our head affect our behaviour. And we'll get into that and what that means. Acceptance and commitment is another term we'll get into over the next couple of months. Accept the conditions for what they are. If things don't work out, what am I going to do about it? And player first. So when I talk about player first, what we're really saying is you put your own welfare before objective ends, okay? So your own welfare, your own mental health, your own care for yourself is important. So you don't keep pushing until you're burnt out. Really important. So here's a question for you. Probably arguably one of the best players in the country for the last 10 years, Conor Callaghan. What do you think makes him stand out? Skill. Okay, what else? Consistency. What else? I'm looking for something in particular. So his skills. What else? What stands out for you when you watch him play? His speed, his pace, speed. What else? What makes Conor Callaghan stand out from most other players, in your view? Be brave. Come on, this is about you guys. His effort. Well, I'll give you a bit of a prompt. Have you ever seen him argue with the referee or lose the plot? Have you ever seen him give a fellow teammate a hard time over a mistake? Have you ever seen him shouting at the sideline? You get what I'm saying? So what is it that he has that stands out in that regard? Cool head, composure, right? So composure is a key thing that we're trying to develop in ourselves in the game. The ability to deal with difficulty, deal with things not going our way, and take the correct course of action. So you give a hand pass, it goes out over the sideline. What are you going to do about it? You kick for a score when maybe you should have passed it and it goes wide. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to start beating yourself up over it? Or are you going to give your teammate a hard time if he does it? These are all important questions. Composure is the one thing that he has and stands out certainly when I watch him. So we talk about composure. I want to play this little clip for you. Some of you have seen this before, and it's important in this conversation, right? Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Sound's not coming through there, so I don't know what's going on. What's that? Could be. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm trying my best here, yeah.
Composure.
So let's see.
As calm as you.
All right, we'll just play. Hopefully you can hear it from the laptop.
night in a Grand Slam final. Even in the first set, there were a lot of deuce games, a lot of great points. You didn't win them. You didn't seem frustrated. There was no body language. How'd you get so calm?
No, I was not calm. I was nervous, but all the body language that is not in a positive way, keep it to make it because it's going against you. So it's one of the things that I try to do all my life, that the body language helps me not go against me, because it's one of the things that depends on just on me, not on no one. So it was not the day to have a negative body language. Completely the opposite, and just to accept all the moments. You know, when you play a Grand Slam final, that you're going to be nervous. You're going to miss probably some opportunities with break points. I missed a couple of returns. Played well, but that's part of the game, and I have been ready to accept all these moments and to, as I said before, to compete well all the time.
So, did anyone pick up the key words that he used in that little clip there? What did you pick out from what he said, if you could hear him? Prepared for bad moments, right? Prepared for it not going his way, for not going well. So he was willing to accept. He said that a couple of times. He accepted the conditions for what they were. Oftentimes in the game, whether we're on the line or whether we're in the game itself, we tend to lose our composure when things don't go our way. But when that happens, we end up inside our head instead of inside the game. So the key to playing your best and making sure that all the effort and time you put into training and everything else can be expressed on the field is remaining in the moment and staying composed. And it takes practice. Just like you take those sticks and you go down onto the field out here and you practice your pucking over the bar and your passing and all the rest of it. And just like you do with a football, you must practice remaining composed when things don't go your way. All right. These are skills not only for football, but for broader life. So we want to stay composed on the line, but we also stay composed on the field. When it doesn't work out, we zero in on what we want to do. Next ball. Give me the ball. I want it. I know I'm better than that. Okay. These are the key things we want to keep in mind and do the work in advance. And that's what we're doing here. So composure. In contrast, you have this fella here. Anyone know who this is? This is Nick Kyrios. Where are you, Nick? Sorry. So I'm not going to play all of this. You can actually I'd like you to watch this clip later on in full. I'm going to play you maybe 2 minutes of it. But I want you to think about the contrast between Rafa Nadal and the composure that he has in the game, or had in the game, he's retired now, and Nick Kyrios, who is the epitome of the complete opposite end of the scale here, right?
Went from easy to bad to blissful for Nick Kyrios. From confidence to confusion and now character. And then quickly to ruin. A topsy-turvy performance. With code violations for racket abuse and an audible obscenity to boot. Not to mention 68 unforced errors, which ended with a SEPI ace. Kyrios frank regarding his own performance.
On a post-loss first sets, that's what happened. It's mental side of things are big for me.
Also wishing he could have his pre-season over again.
He's not playing much basketball.
And suggesting it may be time to seek more guidance.
The coach is always a question mark for me. I think that's one area where I obviously need to start taking a bit more seriously.
Right. So he's and this goes on, and he's arguably one of the greatest players around, but he can't produce the goods consistently. Someone said consistency there about Conor Callaghan. He can't do it consistently because he loses it. And you mightn't necessarily lose it, you know, out in the open where everyone can see. You might be losing it in here. and you're out of the game, you're gone. You can't play because you lost your composure. And composure takes practice. And that's one of the things that we'll focus on as we go through the material over the next few months, right? So back to the slides. Yes, topics we'll cover. Okay, so we'll talk about establishing values and setting healthy goals. That's what we'll do today. We'll look at understanding stress, anxiety, and burnout, and knowing when to push and when to pull back. It's important to know that. We'll have a discussion on mental imagery, self-talk, the conversation that you have with yourself inside your head. Really important. That influences your behaviour. You think that the thoughts that you think have no effect on things, but they do. They influence you at a cellular level in your body, and your performance suffers if you're not talking to yourself in a healthy and helpful way, all right? So self-talk matters. Verbal cues, when you probably heard of that one already, cues that you will use when you enter training or when you start in a game, 1 or 2 word cues that help you switch on and tune in. We'll talk about those. As I mentioned, we'll talk about developing a growth-oriented mindset. I don't have the skills at the minute, but I know that I can learn them. Just give me an opportunity. I know that I can perfect this. Let me at it, right? That's a growth-oriented mindset. Fixed mindset, in contrast, is, well, I can't do that, so what's the point? All right, Nick Kyrios is kind of like that. What's the point? He was accused in a Wimbledon match, I don't know, was it last year or the year before, of giving up. Anyway, it's in that clip, you should watch it. So growth versus fixed mindset. We'll talk about leadership and what that means. What it means to be a leader. You don't necessarily to have the captain's tag, but leadership is important because of what you do influences everyone, both on the coaching side and on the player side. We'll talk about building trust and effective communication. Trust is critical, isn't it? If you don't trust someone on the field, you're not going to give them the ball, are you? So it's really important if you're going to build a team that achieves something, whatever it is, that you trust one another. Really important. Motivation, focus, and concentration. All of these topics you'll find in these books here. Performance Psychology, if you want to get your hands on it. Stuart Cotterill, good book, good little companion piece, all right? Okay, so let's talk about values and goals. Now we're going to do a bit of work here. So if you have your notebook, open it up there and we'll get writing. Coaches can do this as well. Hopefully you're prepared, lads. Because this isn't only about the players, it's about the coaches as well, and the interaction, because you're building a team. You're building a unit that can go forward in the same direction. Everyone's supporting one another. So these are, for everybody, these ideas we're going to talk about. So values and goals. Before we get into any kind of goal setting, it's important to understand why we're here. So why are you here? Not in the bar today, but why are you talking out a couple of times a week? Why are you hitting the gym? Why are you rushing to training after staying late in school? For what? And every answer is valid. You mightn't have thought about this before, but if you want to achieve something in the game, you got to ask yourself this question: why am I here? Why am I doing this? And we go about that by establishing our values. So values are what you stand for. It's an expression of who you are, and they're stable over time. They don't change. So, for example, hard work or work ethic might be something that you feel is one of your values. That's a part of me. It's who I am. Well, then you put that down. They provide you with a foundation for making important decisions. Do I go training tonight, or do I've got maybe education in your career is important to you, over and above the game that you're playing. So do I go training when I know I have an exam tomorrow? Maybe it's not such a great idea. Maybe not an entirely accurate example, but when you set your values, it gives you a foundation for making decisions about whether to get to training or not. So a sense of team and teamwork and reliance on one another. I remember when I was playing, I'd be working, I don't know, wherever I was working around the country, and you'd be struggling to get back to Dublin to train. But it was like I had to get back because I was a part of this team. and not to get back and not to train. I could just throw my hat at it. Sure, I'm not going to bother tonight. But that's just not me. I couldn't do it. So whatever it took, I got there. That was me. But maybe it's different for you. But values, once you understand your values or recognize your values, they help you make decisions. Okay, not only in sport but in everywhere else. It helps with self-awareness, understanding oneself a little bit more. You understand yourself, you have a greater capacity to understand and have empathy with others, okay? Motivation helps keep you motivated, intrinsic motivation, things that are important to you. I don't need to think about this. I am absolutely motivated to get this done. Values help with decision-making, that, like I mentioned. Values ease stress. Stress occurs when there's a pull on you psychologically and emotionally. Do I do this or do I do that? Knowing your values and what you stand for makes those decisions easier and therefore maybe less prone to stress. And helps build an enhanced sense of oneself, self-esteem. So here's going to give you a few minutes for this, right? If you haven't got a notepad and pen, use your phone, open the note thing on your phone. These are just some examples of some values that might be applicable to you. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to write some down. You're only looking for about 5 or 6 here. Certainly no more than 10. It'll be a small number and it'll be stuff you stand for, stuff that's important to you. So we'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes there, okay? Integrity, sense of integrity. In other words, following through on what you said. Respect, having respect for someone, for a teammate, for family, for friends. Understanding that their needs and desires are just as valid as yours. Honesty, related to integrity, being honest about something, being truthful to yourself as well as others. Teamwork, working together to achieve a goal. Support, when a teammate is down, maybe not having the best game they've ever had, that you're there for them. You can put the arm around their shoulder and say, it's all right, you're better than this, let's go, come on. We can do this, right? Excitement, maybe that's what you're after. Success. I want success in this game. You can be really explicit about that. I want a championship. I want a Division 1 or Division 5 or Division 3, Division 7. I want the championship, whatever it is. That's what I want. I want fun. Is there any point of being engaged in this thing in Gaelic games if we don't have fun? Probably not, if that's important to you. Humility. What is humility? Humility is, I'm confident in myself. I don't need to put on a show and a song and dance. I don't need to be seen. I can just go about my business. All right. Conor Callaghan epitomizes humility for me. Learning. I want to learn more. I want to grow. I want to develop. I want knowledge and information. Give it to me. Health and fitness. I want to be strong. I want to be healthy. I want to be powerful. I want to be fit. I want to be the fittest I've ever been. Maybe that's your goal for this year. Family is important. Are you going to forego family occasions and so forth in order to get to games and get to training? That's your call. Challenge. I want to be challenged in this game. Challenge me. Give me something difficult that I can get my teeth into. Adaptability. If when I set a goal, am I willing to change? Am I willing to shift? That's what adaptability means. Happiness. I want to be happy. I want to win, etc., etc. Okay? So you should have about maybe 4 or 5 or 6, I would imagine at the most, values that you stand for. And if you don't have them now, that's okay. You can think about it later on. But this is the foundation, lads. This is the place from which you go on. All right? Now, here's where you tell us what is important to you. And this informs the coaches and what they do and what they don't do and the actions they take. So go to Slido. Coaches can do this too. Slido.com, room number 1593595, and type in 1 or 2 words, same as what you've written down on your page. What's important to you? What are your values? What do you stand for? Above all else, regardless of what happens, win, lose, or draw, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. Good stuff. Teamwork, integrity, respect again. Good stuff. Respect coming up again. Success. fun, commitment, respect again, commitment. Commitment's coming in strong. Respect is strong. Success. Keep going. '27 putting in they're adding their input, teamwork, respect, equal opportunity, nice one. Mental health, nice one. Perseverance, acceptance, good word. Teamwork, commitment, still 32 people. Keep going, lads. We'll just keep going with this until we get a good feel for what you're about. This is good for coaches to know what the players, even the fellas who maybe are not as vocal as others, this is where we find out what they're about, you know. Hard work, commitment, respect, success, honesty, integrity. Good stuff. You can keep typing away there. Does anyone have any thoughts about what's on the screen there? Coaches as well. Anyone want to make any comments about what's come up most prominent here? So you've commitment and respect, teamwork, honesty, hard work, success. Any thoughts, fellas?
The size of the font is how many people it
Yeah.
responds, the bigger the font.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a coach, I'm delighted to see commitment there. Right? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Respect, you know, success, hard work, great words.
Yeah, and sometimes we're led to believe mistakenly, I think, that you know, respect or maybe integrity and honesty, which are prominent here, don't come into play when we're going for when we want success in something. That success is all about the outcome, and this is going to be a real feature of the conversations. The message, at least, that I want to deliver to you is that success is a consequence. And I think you fellas know this already by virtue of what I'm looking at here. Success is a consequence of all of these things, but success isn't something you can achieve until it's achieved. And it's a consequence of executing the process. So when you play a game and you win, lose, or draw that game, it's not the winner, losing, or drawing of the game that count. It's how you use the information you've gained from it to tweak your process. So what did I learn from that game? Well, maybe my hand passing wasn't as sharp as I would like it. Maybe I didn't make the right shot selection. I might have scored a point or two. Maybe my tackling, I didn't get as many turnovers as I would like. Okay, so let the outcome inform the process, but the process will look after itself, if that makes sense. So commitment and respect and success. Thanks for your input here. That's all valuable, all right? So I'll get a screenshot of this and include it in the folder for you. And it's good if you can remind the players of this. If you can print this off and bring it with you, have it in changing rooms, include it in the odd text, but have it front and center, because this really is what will drive the group, is what you're seeing here. Remember what you want, fellas. You know, when that
fun, friendship, or enjoyment is not more prominent. Like fun is fairly prominent, I think, looking at it there.
Yeah.
You know, for a lot of us in the room here, that's probably what we should be hoping to get out of it.
I think it'll probably come as a consequence, because what I found over the years, and probably you fellas have found as well, when you're involved in a team and you're going through the mill and you have some success and you have some failures along the way and everything in between, that you come out of it and you reflect on that time and you say, I made bonds with fellas that are like nothing else, you know? And so friendship comes about as a consequence, and camaraderie come about as a consequence of being in it together, of being committed. Do you know what I mean? So being committed together, everyone going in the same direction is what builds sense of team and of connection and a bond that you'll never forget, you know? So that's my take on it anyway. Okay, we'll keep going. Thanks for that. Okay, so now we've recognized the values. What do you want to achieve for yourself and your team? So go again. What's your goal? Write it down in your diary. Stick it up here as well. What's your goal for the team? If you have one. Win. Make bonds. Minor B, Champo. Let's win the championship. Win is very strong. Development. Win the league. To win. Nobody drops out. Work as one. Success. Keep typing away there. Win a championship at hurling. Build friendships. All of these are valid, okay? They're all valid. There may be not, some of them perhaps are broader than others, but they're all valid, okay? They're all valid. So keep typing. It should stay up on your phone. Keep typing. But overwhelmingly, you can see that to win is something you guys want. Would that be fair enough? Yeah. You all want to achieve something in this game, okay? Some of you have had a taste of it before in school and so forth, and here in the club. So it's nice to win. Okay, so when we're setting goals, then just a framework for setting a goal. And so write this down in your journals, in your diaries. Goals must be smart. And this is a slightly different framework than maybe you've heard of before, and I'll explain what this acronym stands for now. Smart goal setting. The goal must be specific enough to know that you're making progress. Okay, and I'll show you an example now in a sec. So write this down. Write it in your diary or on your phone. The goal needs to be specific. How you'll know you have or are achieving it. It also should be meaningful. Should be connected to your values. Okay, what are my values? Is this goal connected to these values? Should be personally meaningful to you. Should be adaptive. You should be able to move and shift as it may be. You might set a goal for the game, you get injured and you're out for 3 or 4 weeks. Well, you've got to be okay with that. That goes back to acceptance, okay? I'm not at my fittest at the minute. That's all right. I know that I'll catch up. I know that within a few weeks, I'll be back on track. It must be adaptable. If it's rigid and fixed, you're more likely to fail, all right? So whatever the goal is, make sure it can change, maybe shrink a little bit or grow according to how you're getting on in the game itself. Adaptive. Will it fit in and improve the quality of your life? There's no point, is there, in showing up and pushing yourself through training sessions when your hamstring is at you, right? What's going to happen if you do that? You get injured, right? And then you're out for 3 months. So it doesn't make sense. Your goal must be adaptive. Realistic. Can it fit in with the other commitments you have? School. Maybe you're working. Maybe you'll be starting college in September, whatever it is, okay? Does your goal fit in with the rest of your life, with your family and so forth? Make sure that it does. And then time bound. When are you going to achieve it? When do you aim to achieve it? And this is connected to the adaptive side of things. Maybe you've set it for, I don't know, July the 1st or whatever it is. If training isn't going according to plan, you need to push that out, well then do that. So it needs to be time bound. These things aren't discrete, they all relate to one another, okay? So here's an example of a goal, a personal goal you might have for yourself. Win 5 or more turnovers per game on average by game 3 in the league. That's very specific. Yes, it's specific, 5 turnovers per game. Turnovers, if you look at the stats, your coaches probably have, teams who turn over the opposition more than they are turned over in a game tend to win. So turnovers is a great number. You're going to focus on something as a unit. Focus on turnovers in the game. We get more turnovers than them, there's a fair likelihood we're going to win. Fair likelihood. Okay, there's a trend in the number of turnovers and the result in the game. It's the same thing. There's a trend, a correlation between high number of turnovers and games won. Dublin in 2023, when they beat Kerry, they won by 2 points. They had 23 turnovers in that game. Kerry had 18. Now that's only one game, but when you look at games across the board, that's what you see. So maybe this is a reasonable individual goal for you to have. Turnovers, 5 per game. It's specific, yes. Is it meaningful? Yes. Work rate is one of my values. So this is connected to my values. I value work rate. Work rate is just who I am. Let's go, right? Turnovers. I love turning over the opposition. Is it adaptive? Yes. I'll accept 5 on average. So today I might only get 2. Next week I might get 6. The week after that I get 4. Maybe I only get 2, 2 and 3. But I know that I'm going to keep improving and improve this score. So it must be adaptive. I'll accept 5 on average. Is it realistic? Yeah, I'm good in the tackle, but I know that I can improve. Or maybe I'm not as good as I want to be, but I think I can do this. Okay, that's a self-assessment. And then time bound, it's yes by the 3rd league game. Okay, so I'm just going to leave you for a minute or two, and I want you to think about a goal for yourself. Is it turnovers? Is it points scored? Is it balls fielded? Is it passes made? If we're talking about the game, think about it. Write it down. This will help focus your mind on what you're doing. Just take a minute there. And if you've got a couple of things that you would like to improve on, write those few things down. It doesn't have to be one. And you can do some work on this afterwards as well. It doesn't all have to happen today, okay? This is the introduction to this stuff that'll help focus your mind on what you want. Okay, we'll move on. Most of you have stopped writing. So a couple of things to think about when we're setting goals is that sometimes it can go wrong. Goals can go bad. So a few words of caution on setting goals, all right? Firstly, when we're too specific, hopefully you can see the text there. When we're too specific, we overlook some important things. Think about your values. So we can be too blinkered, and other things then begin to suffer. For example, if we're not willing to pay attention to those other areas of our game, well, then maybe our game will suffer. So although you might have a goal, be prepared to just set it aside and work on other things as well. All right, so avoid being overly specific. When you're too rigid, when you're too focused on the outcome, remember what I said about it being adaptable as part of that SMART acronym, SMA, adaptable. If it's too rigid, if you're too focused on the outcome and you give yourself a hard time for not getting what you want, well, then it's going to disrupt you and you're all messed up, okay? You're full of anxiety and stress over not getting what you want. It must be adaptable. So don't be too concerned with short-term results, okay? Overly ambitious, we overstretch ourselves. Instead, take small steps. So like climbing the stairs, one step at a time, okay? They can reduce motivation when, for example, we're overly ambitious, when we push ourselves too hard and we don't give ourselves a break. We feel disappointment. It can affect our our ongoing achievement, okay? And it can impact teamwork. So when the individual goal doesn't allow for the team, well then that goal on yourself begins to suffer, all right? So it must be connected to your team. Okay, some final words then on this topic. What do you stand for? Establish your values and live by them. This is who you are, okay? Bring it to the game. Set smart goals and link them to your values. Stay flexible. Stay focused on the present process, okay? Not on outcomes. Outcomes inform process. So whatever the outcome is, use it to inform the process. Tweak it a little bit, go again. What's the result? Okay, that's more of what we want, but we can tweak this a little bit. Okay, let's go again. All right, let's not get too caught up in the outcomes. If we're losing the rag with ourselves on the field, or we're losing the rag with other players, or the sideline is losing the rag with the players and the bit of heat going on, we're not in the game. We're all caught up in our head and we're too focused on the outcomes. What can you do about the hand pass that went over the sideline and didn't make it to the player, to the man? What can you do about that? Nothing. I'll give you a little analogy, little story. I think some of you know the answer to this or you've heard it before. Two monks, they're part of a Buddhist sect. And part of the sect, the rules of the sect, one of the rules of the sect is you can't talk with women, you can't associate with women. And so that's okay. The two lads are off on a pilgrimage and they come to the bank of a river and they have to cross the river, two monks. And there's a woman here, a girl here who's trying to cross and she can't because the river's moving too fast. So one of the monks picks her up and crosses the river. The two lads cross the river. He puts her down. She says, thanks very much. Off she goes that way and the two lads go this way. And hours pass and there's not a word said. And the first monk, the guy who picked up the girl, turns to his friend and says, you've been silent for hours. Is there a problem? Second monk says, well, you know we're not supposed to associate with women, but you picked that girl up and you carried her across the river. And the first monk said, or replied, well, yeah, and I put her down when we got to the other side, but you're still carrying her. So the moral of the story is what? What's the moral of the story? He got on with it, didn't he? Whereas the other fella was obsessed with the rule that was broken. So if you're worried about the ball that's went over the sideline, you're not focused on the game. You're focused on what happened 10 seconds ago. It goes for any mistake that you make in the game. You've got to forget about it and move on. Accept the conditions for what they are, like Rafa Nadal said, and move on and do what's important now. What's important now? Where am I supposed to be? Where's the next ball? Give it to me. I want it. Okay? So stay focused on the present. Create a process and use the outcomes as an indication of how you're doing. Modify the process as necessary. Okay? So let's not get too caught up in mistakes. Let's try and use that evidence to correct what we've done. Does that make sense? It's really important if you're going to progress. You've got to accept the conditions for what they are. And whatever your goal is, it's valid. Whether it's just to have fun and come down and play and be with your mates, that's valid. And nobody can tell you otherwise. Or it may be to make a Dublin squad. If that's your goal, brilliant. Off you go. That's valid too. And so there's space for everyone and there's room for everyone regardless of what it is. Want to win? No problem. Remind yourself what's important now. Blinkers on, stay focused, composed, tuned in, turned on, ready to take the right action now. That's what's important, okay? If you want to win. You've got to forget about the outcome. Go to work. We recommended some books, pointed out some, or highlighted some important points, identified some key concepts. We established our values. That was the main aim of today. And we set some goals. Over to you. What's important to you? What do you want to learn more about? You don't all have to voice it now, but welcome any input that you have there, any questions you have. Any thoughts or questions on any of that? Do you think you can use it? Do you think you can use this info yourself in your game? If only some of you apply what we've looked at here That's a big step forward, okay? Taking ideas that you have and thoughts that you have about yourself and the game and transferring them to paper, which is why I asked you to bring a notebook, has an important effect for learning and memory. Typing on devices is limited. In fact, it has a negative correlation. That's a correlation, by the way. So it has a negative relationship with learning and development. Writing, that's why the notebook and pen is important. So if you haven't got yourself a journal, a little black journal, something like that there, okay, you can pick them up for about £7. Get one. It's important to write down your thoughts and feelings and your progress and how you're doing and how you felt about today and what you plan for tomorrow. Get it in that, okay, like Senan has there and Tom has there and a few others, right? Get one and start writing. Forget about, as much as you can, the digital device. Writing has a positive effect on learning and development. Remember that. So if you want this stuff to bed in, write it down. Yes. Yeah.
There's a bit of message there as well. In saying that, well, maybe we're not seeing commitments.
Possibly. That's something that you could get together and talk about. Because it doesn't end here, you know.
I would say that's really important. We've had one paper 60, about 38 here today. So that's, you know, today is not 22. Not we're going to make for whatever reason, and that's fine, or might lower numbers on training. Like, what should the lads do to kind of make that as a real value, just to make that one run?
Yeah, where was that slide? I think I went past it, didn't I? Well, it means, first of all, taking the result of it and having a conversation about it when you go training. I know the time is limited with training and sometimes you have to, you know, just tear into it, but taking time to discuss this stuff is important. I know you fellas do anyway. 1 second now, I'll find this slide. There it is there. So we'll talk about leadership at a later session, but I think that's what we're talking about, is you guys who are here saying to the lads who are not here, this is what we expect of you. This is what we said we want. And so come on, be a part of it. Let's go. If we're going to get what we want here out of this, this is the key element. If we're all committed, all going in the same direction. It's really important if you're building a team, isn't it? You know, whether you're in work or in sport, that everybody is on the same page. And so that's up to you, fellas, to get that. Now, that doesn't mean that you ball a fella over for not being there. You're just having an honest conversation. Listen, what's the story? We need you. We want you here. You're an important part of this squad. We need you at training. We need you showing up. This is what we want. This is what we said we want. So can we count on you? Like if you know how you feel when someone balls you out of it and you're in school and a teacher is barking at you, you're like, shut up. Or your folks are giving you a hard time. Not interested. But when you talk respectfully, that's one of the things here, isn't it? Where is it? Hopefully it's here.
Okay,
right. Yeah, it's probably the second largest one. So respect for yourself, respect for others, you know, and that's what you're looking for. And it's up to you guys to communicate that. I think that's the most important thing, you know. Yeah.
So lads, what does commitment mean to you guys? This is really, really important. We're in the 2nd of February. Good road ahead of us. What does it mean for you guys? We haven't heard a lot. Anyone volunteer? Oh, sorry, lads.
Showing up. Plenty of encouragement, you know, the fellas aren't there. Like I said, come on, we need you as a part of this to try and make a connection with them rather than insisting that to be there, because you know how it feels when someone telling you to do something you're not really fully invested in. It's like, but if I know that my mates are looking for me to be here and they care about me being here, well then maybe I'll step up, you know. I don't know. That's how I gauge it. Any other thoughts? Okay. That brings us to a close. We will be looking at the things that I mentioned here later on in the year. Things like mental imagery and self-talk and visualization, all that kind of stuff. That all contributes towards how we do. But this stuff is foundational. Start writing out your goals and your ambitions and your values and stuff and getting it down on paper. And please God, we'll see some progress. You'll get what you want.
I just asked that. So we had a match on Friday night. We had 29 lads that played 2 games. Okay, so we had lads that doubled over. We need more lads. Okay, we have a match tomorrow. Don't know what the number is, Jonathan. 18 or 19. 18 or 19. Okay, still, you know, the lads that are asked to go.